Let me ask you something. What if everything you were told about blood sugar was only half the story? Most people believe that fixing high blood sugar means one thing: cutting carbs, cutting sugar, cutting everything you enjoy eating until your plate looks like a science experiment. And yes, some of that matters. But here is what almost nobody tells you. The fastest, most sustainable way to bring your blood sugar down is not about what you remove. It is about what you add. I have spent years working with patients who came to me frustrated. They had already tried the low-carb approach. They were already avoiding bread and rice and fruit, and their numbers were still climbing. Something was missing, and when we found it, everything changed, sometimes within days. Today, I am going to walk you through 10 specific foods that work at the root level of blood sugar problems, not just masking the numbers, actually fixing the biology underneath. And by the end of this video, you will have a clear, practical plan you can start tonight. My name is Dr. David Ade, and if you are new here, welcome. This channel is built on one belief: that you deserve to understand your own body, not just be handed a prescription and sent home, but actually understand what is happening inside you and what you can do about it. So before we get into the 10 foods, I need to explain something that most people with blood sugar problems have never had explained to them properly. And until you understand this, no list of foods is going to make complete sense. Here is the real story. High blood sugar almost never starts with the sugar itself. It starts upstream with a hormone called insulin. Insulin is your body's delivery system. Every time you eat something that raises glucose, whether that is bread, rice, fruit, or anything with carbohydrates, your pancreas releases insulin. And insulin's job is to unlock your cells so they can accept that glucose and use it for energy. Now here is where it goes wrong. When you spend years eating in ways that spike your blood sugar repeatedly, or when chronic stress and inflammation are sitting quietly in the background, your cells begin to ignore insulin's signal. Insulin shows up, it knocks on the door, and the cell does not answer. We call this insulin resistance. And it is the foundation of nearly every case of type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, and stubborn high fasting sugar. Here is the cruel part. Your pancreas does not know why the cells are not responding. So it does the only thing it can. It makes more insulin, more and more, until it is exhausted. And all that extra insulin floating around your bloodstream creates its own problems: weight gain, inflammation, fatigue, and eventually, blood sugar that climbs no matter what you do. Now here is why I am telling you all of this before we even get to the first food. Every single food on today's list is targeting one of three specific problems. Either it is slowing the rate at which sugar enters your blood, so your system never gets overwhelmed, or it is cooling down the inflammation that is keeping your cells deaf to insulin, or it is directly helping your insulin receptors work again, so your own body can do the job it was built to do. That is the framework. And once you understand it, these 10 foods stop feeling like random health advice and start feeling like a logical, coordinated plan. Let's begin. The first food on the list is fenugreek seeds. Now, I know, that might not sound exciting, but I want you to stay with me here because if you walk past this one because it sounds unfamiliar, you are skipping one of the most clinically impressive blood sugar tools available, and it costs less than $2 at most grocery stores. Fenugreek seeds are small, hard, amber-colored seeds. You will find them in the spice section, sometimes near Indian or Middle Eastern ingredients. And inside those little seeds is something remarkable, a type of soluble fiber called galactomannan. Here is what that fiber does when it enters your body. The moment those seeds hit the water in your stomach, they begin to absorb liquid and swell into a thick, viscous gel. And that gel coats the lining of your digestive tract and physically slows the rate at which carbohydrates get broken down and absorbed into your bloodstream. Think of it like the difference between pouring water through a wide funnel versus a narrow straw. Fenugreek turns your digestion into the narrow straw. The sugar that comes from your meal still enters your blood, but it enters slowly in a controlled trickle instead of a sudden flood. No flood means no sharp insulin spike, and no sharp insulin spike means your pancreas gets to breathe. But fenugreek does something else too. It contains a naturally occurring amino acid called 4-hydroxyisoleucine, which has been shown in research to stimulate insulin secretion directly from the pancreas and help your muscle cells pull glucose in more efficiently. So it is working on two fronts at the same time, slowing the sugar coming in and helping the body use it more effectively. In clinical studies, people with type 2 diabetes who added fenugreek consistently saw meaningful reductions in both fasting glucose and after-meal blood sugar over weeks of use. This is not a trend. This is documented, researched, and reproducible. Here is how to use it. Take 1 teaspoon of whole fenugreek seeds the night before and soak them in a small glass of water. Leave them overnight. In the morning, before breakfast, drink the water and eat the softened seeds. The overnight soaking breaks down some of the more difficult compounds and makes them easier on your stomach. If the slightly bitter taste puts you off, you can grind dried fenugreek seeds into a fine powder and stir half a teaspoon into yogurt or sprinkle it over scrambled eggs. It blends into food more easily than you might expect. One thing I do want to mention: start with a smaller amount in the first few days. The fiber content is significant, and if you jump in with a full teaspoon immediately, some people experience bloating or digestive discomfort. Give your gut a few days to adjust, and then you can work up comfortably. The second food is cinnamon, and I suspect many of you already have this in your kitchen right now, but I want to make sure you have the right kind, because this matters more than most people realize, and most people are buying the wrong one. Here is the distinction. The most common cinnamon on grocery store shelves is a variety called cassia cinnamon. It is what fills the majority of spice jars you see in supermarkets. And while it does have some blood sugar benefits, it also contains a naturally occurring compound called coumarin. And in the daily doses needed for blood sugar support, coumarin can accumulate in the body and cause harm to the liver over time. The cinnamon you want is called Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled as true cinnamon. It is lighter in color, milder in flavor, and contains significantly less coumarin, making it safe for daily, long-term use in the amounts that actually produce a benefit. So if you currently have cassia cinnamon and you are using it occasionally, that is fine. But if you are going to use cinnamon consistently as part of a blood sugar strategy, make the switch to Ceylon. It is widely available online and in health food stores. Now, what does cinnamon actually do? Inside cinnamon are a group of active plant compounds called polyphenols. And these polyphenols have a fascinating ability to interact with your insulin receptors in a way that makes them more sensitive and more responsive. They essentially mimic some of the activity of insulin itself, helping the receptor grip glucose more effectively and signal the cell to open up and accept it. At the same time, cinnamon slows gastric emptying, meaning it slows the rate at which food leaves your stomach and enters your intestine, which in turn slows the rate at which sugar hits your blood. Research conducted through the Human Nutrition Program at the USDA found that consuming as little as half a teaspoon of cinnamon daily produced measurable reductions in fasting blood glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes. That is a meaningful finding for something you can stir into your morning coffee. The practical dose is 1/4 to half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon per day. You can add it to your oatmeal, your coffee, a smoothie, or even mix it into yogurt. The most effective timing is with a carbohydrate-containing meal, because that is exactly when you want your insulin receptors working at their best and your stomach taking its time. It is a small habit. But stacked with the other foods we are covering today, it becomes part of something much larger. Third on the list is broccoli sprouts. And I want to slow down here because this one tends to get skipped, either because people assume they mean regular broccoli or because it sounds like too much effort. Both assumptions cost you, so let me explain clearly. I am not talking about a head of broccoli from the produce section. I am talking about broccoli sprouts, the 3 to 4 day old seedlings, barely an inch or two tall, that look a bit like alfalfa sprouts. That distinction is critical because the sprouts contain somewhere between 50 and 100 times more of the key compound than a fully mature head of broccoli. That compound is called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is an extraordinarily well-studied molecule, and what it does for blood sugar regulation is unique among everything else on this list. While most of our other foods are slowing glucose absorption or improving insulin sensitivity at the cell surface, sulforaphane works in a different location entirely: the liver. Here is something important. Your liver does not just process blood sugar, it actually produces it. While you sleep, your liver runs what is called gluconeogenesis. It manufactures glucose from stored compounds and releases it into your blood to keep your energy stable overnight. This is completely normal and healthy in a well-functioning body. But in someone with insulin resistance, this process becomes dysregulated. The liver makes far too much glucose overnight, flooding the blood even before the person has taken a single bite of food in the morning. This is why so many people with high blood sugar wake up with their highest reading of the day, despite not eating for 8 or 9 hours. Sulforaphane has been shown to suppress this excess overnight glucose production. It enters the liver cells, activates specific genetic pathways, and quiets down the overactive manufacturing process. A study published in 2017 from Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to individuals with type 2 diabetes and measured a significant reduction in fasting blood glucose. Notably, the benefit was most pronounced in people whose baseline numbers were the highest, which is exactly the population that needs it most. You can buy broccoli sprouts in the produce section of many grocery stores, usually near other sprouts or microgreens, or you can grow them yourself at home with a mason jar, some seeds, and a piece of cheesecloth. They are ready in 3 to 4 days and cost very little. A quarter cup, eaten a few times a week, is enough to get a measurable effect. Eat them raw or add them at the very end of a warm dish. High heat destroys sulforaphane, so do not cook them. Toss them onto a sandwich, fold them into a salad, or layer them into eggs just before serving. Number 4 is the avocado. And I want to address the hesitation that many people still carry around this food. For a long time, the fat content of avocados made people nervous. High calorie, high fat. It felt like something to limit or avoid. But the type of fat inside an avocado is one of the most beneficial things you can put in your body when blood sugar is a concern. The primary fat in avocado is monounsaturated fat, the same family of fat found in olive oil and almonds. And this particular type of fat has several properties that make it genuinely valuable for blood sugar management. First, it slows digestion. When you eat a meal that includes fat and fiber, both of which avocados contain in meaningful amounts, that meal moves through your system more slowly. The carbohydrates in that same meal are absorbed more gradually. Your blood glucose rises gently and steadily rather than spiking sharply. Second, and perhaps more importantly over the long term, monounsaturated fat improves insulin sensitivity. Research consistently shows that diets higher in monounsaturated fat and lower in refined carbohydrates and processed fats are associated with better insulin receptor function over time. The cells become more responsive. They start answering the insulin knock more readily. And third, a practical benefit that should not be underestimated, avocado is filling. When you add half an avocado to your breakfast or lunch, you are not hungry again an hour later. You are not reaching for a snack that spikes your sugar. That extended satiety has a real blood sugar impact across the full day. Half an avocado per day is a reasonable and well-supported amount. Add it to your eggs in the morning, spread it on whole grain toast, slice it into a salad, or blend it into a smoothie. Wherever carbohydrates are present in a meal, avocado softens the blood sugar response. Think of it as a natural, delicious brake system. Fifth is chia seeds. And if you have ever made chia pudding or stirred chia into water and watched what happens, that gel that forms, that is exactly the mechanism at work inside your body. Chia seeds are one of the most concentrated sources of soluble fiber available in a whole food. Per tablespoon, their fiber density is remarkable. And when that soluble fiber hits the liquid environment of your stomach, it expands and forms a thick, viscous gel, similar to what we saw with fenugreek, that coats the contents of your stomach and slows carbohydrate absorption dramatically. What this means practically is that instead of a quick surge of glucose entering your blood after a meal, the release is slow, extended, and steady. The spike is replaced by a gradual curve. Your insulin does not have to scramble. Your pancreas is not overwhelmed. And that steady release also means you do not get the blood sugar crash that often follows a spike, the one that leaves you shaky, foggy, and craving something sweet an hour after eating. Chia also brings something our previous foods did not emphasize as strongly: plant-based omega-3 fatty acids. While not as potent as the marine-derived omega-3s we will discuss shortly, plant omega-3s contribute to reducing the low-grade systemic inflammation that underpins insulin resistance. Every source of anti-inflammatory support matters when you are trying to wake up cells that have gone quiet. 1 to 2 tablespoons of chia seeds per day is the target. You have many ways to get there. Stir them into yogurt and let them sit for 10 minutes. Add them to a glass of water with lemon juice and a small amount of sweetener. Blend them into a smoothie, or make overnight chia pudding with a plant-based milk and cinnamon on top. One practical reminder: drink extra water when using chia. All that soluble fiber absorbs liquid, and you want to stay well hydrated for it to move through your system comfortably. Number 6 is fatty fish. And this one is doing something categorically different from the foods we have covered so far. Everything up to this point has worked primarily by slowing sugar absorption or improving how efficiently the body handles it in the moment. Fatty fish, specifically salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring, targets the deeper upstream driver of insulin resistance, chronic inflammation. Here is why that matters. Insulin resistance does not develop overnight. It develops gradually, over years, and chronic low-grade inflammation is one of its primary causes. When inflammatory signals are circulating in the body, quietly, without you feeling obvious symptoms, they interfere directly with the insulin receptor at the surface of the cell. They block the communication pathway. Insulin arrives, but the cell cannot hear the signal properly. Fatty fish is the richest food source of EPA and DHA, two forms of omega-3 fatty acids that are among the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds identified in nutritional research. These omega-3s work at the cellular level, modifying inflammatory pathways, improving the health and flexibility of cell membranes, and helping the insulin receptor restore its sensitivity. The patients who consistently eat fatty fish twice a week tend, over time, to have calmer, more stable numbers. Their fasting readings are more predictable. Their post-meal spikes are less dramatic. And as a bonus, these same omega-3s are cardioprotective, which matters a great deal because elevated blood sugar and heart disease walk closely together. 2 servings per week is a realistic and research-supported target. A serving is roughly the size of the palm of your hand. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring are all excellent options. And if budget is a concern, canned mackerel and canned sardines are among the most affordable and nutritionally complete foods you can buy. Look for versions packed in water or olive oil, with minimal added sodium. Bake it, grill it, pan-sear it, or open the can and add it directly to a salad. The delivery method matters less than the consistency. 7th on the list is walnuts, and of all the nuts available to you, this is the one I would point most people toward first when blood sugar is the concern. What makes walnuts stand out is their particular fatty acid profile combined with a meaningful amount of fiber and plant protein. Together, these components do several things at once. The polyunsaturated fat in walnuts, along with their plant-based omega-3 content, supports the health of your endothelium, the thin, delicate lining inside your blood vessels. High blood sugar is one of the earliest and most consistent causes of endothelial damage, and walnuts help protect and restore that lining, which has implications not just for blood sugar, but for blood pressure and cardiovascular health overall. At the same time, the combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts slows the digestion of any meal they are eaten with, dampening the glucose response. And research has shown that regular walnut consumption is associated with lower fasting insulin levels, which is a meaningful marker, because fasting insulin tells you how hard the pancreas is working just to maintain baseline blood sugar. A small handful, approximately 7 to 10 whole walnuts or about a quarter cup, is the appropriate daily amount. Keep them raw or dry roasted. Avoid the honey-glazed, candied, or heavily salted varieties, which add sugars and excess sodium and undermine the benefit. The most effective way to use walnuts is as a direct replacement for a processed snack: crackers, cookies, chips, anything that would otherwise spike your glucose. Swap the snack, not just add on top of your existing intake. That is where the clearest blood sugar benefit shows up. Number 8 is eggs, whole eggs, yolk included. For a long time, a lot of well-meaning health advice pushed people away from egg yolks because of concerns about dietary cholesterol. And during that same period, many people replaced eggs with cereals and toast, foods that turned out to be significantly worse for blood sugar than an egg ever was. Let me be clear about what a whole egg actually does in your blood sugar picture. A whole egg contains virtually no carbohydrates. Its macronutrient composition is almost entirely protein and fat. On its own, a whole egg does almost nothing to your blood sugar. That alone makes it a fundamentally different breakfast than cereal, toast, or a pastry. But what makes eggs genuinely powerful for blood sugar goes beyond the immediate meal. Research has demonstrated what is called a second meal effect from a high-protein, high-fat breakfast. When your first meal of the day is built around eggs rather than a carbohydrate-heavy food, your blood sugar remains more stable not just after breakfast, but all the way through to your next meal. The metabolic momentum from that first meal carries forward for hours. The reason is straightforward. Protein and fat take longer to digest. They require more work from your body. They keep your stomach fuller longer. And when your stomach is full and your blood sugar is stable, the impulse to snack on something sugary, the mid-morning craving that so many people struggle with, simply does not arise in the same way. In practice, 2 to 3 whole eggs cooked however you prefer, scrambled, poached, boiled ahead for the week, is a solid morning target. Add some spinach or other leafy greens to the scramble. Top them with the avocado we covered earlier. Add a pinch of the Ceylon cinnamon to your coffee alongside. You are already stacking 3 of our 10 foods before 10 in the morning. Number 9 is apple cider vinegar, and this is the one with the most immediately measurable effect of everything on today's list. If you have a blood glucose meter at home, you can actually watch this one work in real time. Take a reading before dinner. Take a tablespoon of diluted apple cider vinegar before you eat. Check your reading 90 minutes after the meal. Many people are genuinely surprised by what they see. The active compound in apple cider vinegar is acetic acid. And acetic acid produces 2 effects that are directly relevant to blood sugar control. First, it slows gastric emptying, just as we have seen with fenugreek, cinnamon, and chia. It physically delays the rate at which your stomach passes its contents into the small intestine, which means carbohydrates are absorbed more slowly and your blood glucose rises more gradually after a meal. Second, and this is the part that distinguishes vinegar from the other fiber-based foods, acetic acid appears to improve the ability of muscle cells to absorb glucose from the bloodstream directly. It activates an enzyme pathway in skeletal muscle that essentially pulls sugar out of circulation and stores it as glycogen, the form of energy your muscles use. The result is a measurable reduction in the after-meal glucose spike. Research led by Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University found that taking 1 tablespoon of vinegar before a carbohydrate-containing meal reduced the post-meal blood sugar rise by approximately 20% in people with insulin resistance. That is a clinically significant effect from a food available at every grocery store for a few dollars. Here is how to use it. 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted into a full glass of water, 8 to 12 ounces, consumed 10 to 15 minutes before a meal that contains carbohydrates. Always dilute it, do not drink it straight. The acidity is hard on tooth enamel and the lining of the throat. Diluted in water, the effect is preserved and the risk is negligible. One important caution: if you are currently taking any prescription medication for blood sugar, insulin, sulfonylureas, or related drugs, please speak with your physician before adding vinegar consistently. These foods lower blood sugar. Your medication lowers blood sugar. Together, they may lower it more than your current dose accounts for, and you need your doctor to monitor and adjust accordingly. The 10th food is lentils, and this one, more than any other on the list, proves the central point of everything we have talked about today. Lentils are a carbohydrate. They are not low carb. They are not carb-free, and they will lower your blood sugar. That apparent contradiction is actually the whole lesson. Here is why. Not all carbohydrates behave the same way inside your body. White rice, white bread, white potatoes, these are what we call high glycemic carbohydrates. They break down quickly, flood your bloodstream with glucose in a short window, and demand a large, rapid insulin response. Over time, that pattern deepens insulin resistance. Lentils are the opposite. They contain a type of carbohydrate called resistant starch, a form of carbohydrate that is not fully broken down in the small intestine. Instead, it passes into the large intestine, where it feeds beneficial gut bacteria and is absorbed very slowly, if at all, as glucose. Wrapped around that resistant starch is soluble fiber and a meaningful amount of plant protein, both of which slow digestion further. The net effect is that lentils release their glucose content over several hours rather than in one quick burst. Your blood sugar rises gently. Your insulin response is measured. And like eggs, lentils carry the second meal effect. A bowl of lentil soup at lunch has been shown to produce a more stable blood sugar response, even at dinner, hours later. Clinically, swapping white rice or mashed potatoes for lentils several times a week is one of the most reliable dietary changes I know of for improving a 3-month average blood sugar, known as an A1C. A half cup to a full cup of cooked lentils several times a week is a reasonable and sustainable amount. Red, green, or brown, they all work. Use them in a soup, a hearty stew, a cold salad with olive oil, and a splash of the apple cider vinegar we just covered. They are filling, affordable, and remarkably versatile. Before I bring all 10 of these together, I want to tell you about someone. I will call her Margaret. She was 64 years old when she came to see me, recently retired, and she was scared. Her fasting blood sugar had climbed to around 180, and her doctor had just told her the time had come for a second medication. She had been on one for 3 years already, and she had watched her own mother lose her vision and eventually her independence to this same disease. She did not want that path. She was not sedentary. She had already reduced her sugar intake significantly. She thought she was doing everything right, and her numbers were still going in the wrong direction. That is an exhausting and frightening place to be. We did not put her on a strict elimination diet. We did not remove her carbohydrates entirely. Instead, we built on what she was already eating: eggs and avocado in the morning, replacing the cereal she had been eating for years. A tablespoon of diluted apple cider vinegar before her largest meal of the day. Lentils swapped in for white rice 2 or 3 times a week. A handful of walnuts replacing her afternoon biscuit. Salmon or mackerel on the menu twice a week. A quarter teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon in her morning coffee, and broccoli sprouts on her sandwich at lunch, which she admitted she barely noticed were there. Within the first week, her fasting numbers began to drop. Not dramatically, but measurably, consistently, and in the right direction. By the 3-month mark, working closely with her own physician who was monitoring everything throughout, she had come off the second medication entirely. Her A1C had shifted from solidly in the diabetic range back toward normal. She felt more energetic than she had in years. 2 years on, her numbers have held. She did not starve herself. She was not miserable. She simply added the right foods, consistently, and her own body did the rest. That is what cellular level change looks like in practice. Not a dramatic overnight transformation, but a steady, compounding improvement that holds because it is built on biology, not willpower. Let me tie all 10 of these together now, because understanding why they work together is as important as knowing what they are. Every food on this list is doing one of 3 jobs. The fiber-based foods, fenugreek, chia, cinnamon, lentils, avocado, are slowing the rate of glucose entry into your blood. They are giving your pancreas time. They are preventing the spike before it happens. The anti-inflammatory foods, fatty fish, walnuts, chia, are cooling the underlying inflammation that has been interfering with your insulin receptors. When that inflammation decreases, the cells that stopped listening begin to respond again. And the insulin-sensitizing foods, cinnamon, apple cider vinegar, broccoli sprouts, eggs, are going directly to the receptor level, helping it grip and signal more effectively, or cleaning up the environment the receptor operates in. Stack these consistently, meal after meal, day after day, and the effect compounds. You are not using one tool against a complex problem. You are using 10 coordinated tools, each addressing a different part of the same underlying breakdown. That is why these work when carb restriction alone fails, and that is why Margaret's numbers held for 2 years. She was not relying on willpower or deprivation. She had given her body the specific inputs it needed to restore its own function. Here is what I want you to do, starting tonight. Step 1. Tonight before bed, soak 1 teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in a glass of water. In the morning, drink the water and eat the seeds before breakfast. Step 2. Replace your morning cereal or toast with 2 to 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single swap changes your blood sugar trajectory for the entire day. Step 3. Buy Ceylon cinnamon if you do not already have it, and start adding a quarter teaspoon to your morning coffee or oatmeal. Step 4. Before your largest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water, 15 minutes before you eat. Step 5. This week, swap white rice or white potato for lentils at least twice. Put fatty fish on the menu 2 evenings. Do not try to do everything at once and overwhelm yourself. Add these gradually over 2 to 3 weeks. Stack them. Let them build on each other. The goal is not perfection today. The goal is consistency over time. Before I let you go, one clear and important note. If you are currently taking insulin or a sulfonylurea, one of the older categories of blood sugar medication, adding several of these foods at once can lower your blood sugar more quickly than your current dose accounts for. That can occasionally push levels lower than intended. This is not a reason to avoid these foods. It is a reason to let your doctor know you are making these changes. Bring this list to your next appointment. Ask them to monitor your numbers more frequently. If your blood sugar improves, and for many people it will, your medication dose may need to be adjusted downward. Never stop or reduce a prescription on your own, but do not be afraid to have that conversation with your physician as your body improves. That is the goal. Everything we have covered today, each of these 10 foods, is about giving your body back its own capacity to regulate. Not replacing your body's intelligence with a drug, but restoring the conditions under which your biology can do what it was designed to do. Your cells want to respond to insulin. Your pancreas wants to function properly. Your liver wants to regulate glucose in a healthy, balanced way. These foods create the environment for all of that to happen. It is not magic. It is not a shortcut. But for many people, it is the missing piece they were never given. If you found value in today's video, please take a moment to hit the like button. It genuinely helps more people find this information who need it. Subscribe if you are not already part of this community, because we cover these kinds of topics regularly, and each video builds on the last. Leave me a comment below. Tell me what your morning fasting number has been this week. Tell me which of these 10 foods you are going to start with. I read every comment, and the questions and experiences you share directly shape what I cover next. And if you know someone in your life who is struggling with their blood sugar, a family member, a friend, someone who has been told their numbers are too high, share this video with them. The information exists. The tools exist. Sometimes the only thing missing is someone taking the time to explain it properly. I will see you in the next one.